everyone, and wishing you all a very happy and healthy 2021. 2020 was a tough and challenging year for all of us. However, we are now stronger, wiser, and ready to start 2021. And I, for one, am so excited to kickstart the first episode of Trust Talks, brought to you by Renergetics Consulting, where we transform people, transform business. If you would like to know more about us, go on to www.renergetics.com. I'm your host, Aishwarya Subramanian, and I would like to welcome you to our show, Trust Talks. Trust Talks is a series focused on trust, where the intent of the show is to highlight the importance and impact of trust in individuals, teams, organizations, and community. Our plan is to invite experts and leaders who will be giving you an insight into how trust can be transformative in its impact. Before we get started, I'd love to hear from you guys. Where are you joining in from? So in the comment section, let us know who you are and where are you joining in from. Hi, Anupriya. Lovely to see you. Okay, so we have Anupriya, we have Lekha Shishta. Hi, Lekha. Hi, Eric from Singapore. Hi, Carleen. Welcome, Usha. Hi, Owen from Slovakia. Thank you guys for joining in today on this Trust Talks. So to everyone who's joining us today, watching us live or probably the replay of this, I would love to hear your thoughts or questions in the comment section. We will be answering them at the end of our show. Also, let us know what you would like us to talk about in our next episode. So keep the suggestions coming. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming our co-founders on the show. First, we have Jessica Sargent. Jessica is the co-founder of Renergetics Consulting, partners with Rener, a trust building consultancy. She's the founding member of the John Maxwell team, an OD consultant, professional speaker, psychotherapist, and an EIT consultant. She's also a Rener certified master trust building practitioner. Hi, Jessica. Welcome to Trust Talks.
Thank you, Aishwarya.
So, Jessica, how are you feeling about the very first episode of Trust Talks?
Just two words, inspired, excited.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'd also like to extend a very warm welcome to Subramanian Narayan. Subramanian Narayan is the co-founder of Renergetics Consulting, partners with Rener, a trust building consultancy, founding member of the John Maxwell team. He is an OD consultant, professional speaker, and an executive coach. He's also Rener certified master trust building practitioner. Hi, Subramanian. Welcome to Trust Talks.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'd like to welcome once again the two of you, and I'm so excited to share this space with two of you. And seeing the number of people who have turned in today, I'll jump right into one of the questions that I had when I saw Trust Talks. So, Subramanian, I wanted to ask you, why Trust Talks? What inspired you both to launch Trust Talks?
So it all started in February 2017, and I was attending a keynote by Dennis Reiner and Michelle Reiner. And I was there, as I would attend many other seminars and conferences. I was into one of those. And as the discussion started, obviously they were talking about trust building. And as they started going deeper into their keynote, I started realizing that I was actually looking at something very powerful. And while I was listening to them, I was getting images which were a little strange. But let me share that image in my own way to you. I was actually seeing corporates in buildings make it look like a transparent building where you can see through the walls the people inside. And I was seeing people committed and dedicated to do their best, give their best, but having on their body bandages and plasters. And for me, it was almost like a metaphor. And I say that because I have been in corporate for about 25 plus years. And there has been many moments where you have wondered as to what else can you do. Now, with all the good intentions that we have, and with all the good creativity or whatever you want to call it, you want to give your best. And I was remembering my events, and I was also seeing many other colleagues of mine. And also in today's world, with all the clients that we deal with, we constantly come across people wanting to give their best but unable to do so. And there's always a question is, how can I? And while Dennis and Michelle were talking about trust, it slowly started becoming even more, started growing powerful inside. And I think we then partnered with Dennis and Michelle eventually in May 2017. And the journey so far has been not surprising at all because trust, of course, we have realized over the years, trust is so fundamental. And the reason why I saw those images is because people have these frustrations and they're trying to give their best, not realizing that many a times that is because of lack of trust. Now, I'm not saying there is no trust, but the trust is not at a level which will help each other. So we continue to do all of those team building, we continue to work on employee engagement, but we don't seem to be getting the results. And at the core of it, at the core of any human relationship is trust. And so, and so we thought because it's so foundational, why don't we do something about it? So we obviously made core as our, rather trust, our core offer. Now, another point in place here is we are celebrating 10th anniversary, and the fact that Jessica and I met 10 years back is clearly another milestone, of course, for being 10th anniversary. But more than that, I think somewhere we had picked up and shown trust in with each other. And talking about a 10-year journey with relatively smooth ride speaks volumes about that. So on hindsight, when I connect the dots, you start seeing trust. Now, why are we talking about trust talks and why trust? That was the question that Aishwarya had. And I would say our experiences with the client has come to a point where we feel trust is more than what we all understand. For me, and I'll use a particular line here, which may not be very often used, especially in corporates, but trust is not just a source of positive energy. For me, in my words, trust is the source of divinity. And I want you to think about this. I say trust is a source of divinity, and you might be a little surprised, maybe shocked, but I still want you to reflect about this. What exactly is trust? Trust is that pure connection that builds relationship. Trust is that pure bond with no selfish motives. It is absolutely pure from one human to another human. And if we can build that in teams, in families, in leaders, in organizations, and even more in community, imagine what that world is going to be. And if I have a trusting relationship and such a pure relationship, it takes you to an expanded energy feeling. And when that energy overwhelms, you're almost looking at a source which is almost feeling, if not real, like divinity. So at this point, I want to specifically acknowledge Dennis Reyna and Michelle Reyna for for rekindling that power of trust in us. We went thinking we're going to get just the trust and the tools, but what we have got is an inspired soul. So, why are we doing this? We are hoping that in our own small way, we can inspire some of you, and in our own way, help you inspire some of your colleagues and friends. So that's Aishwarya is the real why we are trying to do this. So thank you for that question.
Absolutely, Subramanian. And what you said about trust not just being a positive energy, but divinity in itself, I think that resonates with me at the very core. And in the same vein, I would like to ask Jessica, what about you? What inspired you to launch Trust Talks?
So, as per the research done by Renas, it said that 90% of the time, trust is broken unintentionally. But this unintentional accumulation, the cumulative effect of unintentional breach of trust can be devastating. So, such is the power, such is the impact of trust. If that is the case, why not be intentional about living trust and building trust? So, in that spirit, my first message to you, our audience here, is trust begins with you, with me, and us. When we look at building trust, we need to first ask ourselves, how are we with trust? Are we unintentionally breaking trust? What are we doing in our behaviors to build trust? So this is very, very fundamental in this trust journey with us. I'd also like to share something, Aishwarya, to your question
Sure.
about what inspired us and what this Trust Talks is about. I have this a very trusting relationship with my subconscious mind. So it talks to me in beautiful ways. It gives me a peep into the future. It gives me beautiful insights. So as I was reflecting on about these Trust Talks, uh, 2 a.m. at night, I wake up from my sleep and I see these vivid images. And these are images of oak trees, you know, lots and lots of oak trees, and then oak nuts being sold. And that was a very powerful, vivid imagery. And in the morning, when I woke up and I actually reflected on what oak tree stands for, oak tree stands tall and strong, but it is grounded. It is the epitome of strength, of resilience, of valor, and honor. And that is a leader who lives trust. That is what it's about. And for me, that was a vision that through these trust talks, we are sowing those oak nuts, creating leaders who live these trusts, who are solid oak trees. And through the upcoming episodes, we're also going to bring leaders who are these solid oak trees, leaders, thought leaders, industry leaders, experts in various industries who would come here and share their valuable insights on trust and in turn inspire more oak trees.
Absolutely, Jessica. I think even looking at the responses that are coming in from LinkedIn and Facebook, I think a lot of what you both have said really resonates with the audiences who are tuning into LinkedIn and Facebook. Anupriya says, "A cumulative effect of unintentionally breaking of trust." Now that's something to reflect on, truly. So, Jessica, I'd like to ask you, what has been your experience with trust? Could you share a little bit from either your personal experience or your experience with corporates?
Sure. Let me start with a personal experience. And in fact, I believe that our trust journey did not start in 2017. It actually started in the year in 2011. So we, both Subramanian and I, met for the first time at Florida, attending a live certification to become certified John Maxwell team members. We were, in fact, the first batch of the John Maxwell team members who were certified by John Maxwell. And there was this blessed moment where all of us in the audience were being addressed by John Maxwell, and he spoke his heart, and he was in a very vulnerable state. Like he was literally, there were tears in his eyes, and he was sharing his story, where he says, when Paul Martinelli, the then president of the John Maxwell team, approached him to create this John Maxwell team of leaders, of speakers, of people who take this work to the world, it was quite scary for John Maxwell, because it was like, in his words, putting his name on the line of fire. What if these members do not live up to the values, the legacy that he has created? But then he decided to take that leap of faith, and he jumped in and he created his first team. And his words, he said, I am giving you my DNA. Take forward my work and take this legacy forward. That was a magical moment where I saw, along with John Maxwell, 500 people in that room had tears in our eyes. It was a moment where John Maxwell had imprinted his values, deeply rooted in trust, in principles, to each one of us in that room. And the kind of energy that we experienced there was at a very different level. So I would tell Subramanian, what if all this energy subsides? It's just momentary. But 6 months down the line, this energy continued, and we decided to do something about it. And that's how Renergetics was formed as co-founders, between Subramanian and me. And Renergetics stands for re-energizing people, teams, organizations. And if you really look at it, energy, the human energy, what is the real source of it? What is at the core of it? The essence is trust. And I believe that this journey was just preparing us for our journey to meet Dr. Dennis and Michelle Reynaud. When we were ready for it, we met them. And they are pioneers, like Subramanian said, who have dedicated more than 25 years of their life exclusively for this topic of building trust across teams, organizations across the world. And so I personally believe that whatever happened was just not by accident. We were introduced to our true calling.
That's really amazing to hear, Jessica, and truly what you said, trust being at the core of what we do, really impacts the work that we do as well. And Subramanian, I'd like to ask you, would you like to share a bit about how, in your experience, how trust has worked out in corporate space?
Yeah, thank you for Jesse, for you to remind that incident with John Maxwell, and I totally agree. I mean, vulnerability lesson number one probably was that when I think about all the examples that I've had. And when you become vulnerable, you build trust. So again, we talk about vulnerability, but we seldom see people, leaders, understanding and practicing vulnerability. I say understanding because many times they're not sure what that would mean and what that would include. So, talking about experiences with the clients, I think it has been a great one, especially with trust being at the core. And when we have had many clients in the last 4 years where we have worked with them, and we have had an entire range where we have seen people struggling to bring people together and not be in their silos. We have seen people struggling to increase creativity and be able to do decisions faster and create an agile organizations. And then trust has helped them significantly in doing that, improving that. We've also seen teams who are performing extremely well and wanting to explore what's the next level for them. And even there, it's interesting as how trust has enabled them to take that performance, take that relationship, take that team bonding to the next level. And so is the case here, whether you're talking about change management, whether you're talking about challenging situations, whether you're talking about agility, all corporate words which are very popular, including employee engagement, our experiences has been very clearly showing very positive results. And when we say positive results, we are talking about measurable, tangible results. So it's been overall a great experience, and pretty grateful for having those experiences, especially leveraging trust.
Thank you, Subramanian. Subramanian, so when you're talking about working with organizations and clients, how do you really assess the level of trust? Because personally, for me, trust is something that's so internal. So the question I have is, can you really measure trust, which is so intangible?
Yeah, so that's exactly was one of the turning points amongst many for us to get associated with Rena. And you would not think, and I did not believe, that trust can be measured because it was something internal. I agree trust was important, but never thought that trust could be measured. I never believed, even if that was measured, it would be as good a measure that would stand the test of time. Now, our experiences were obviously pleasantly surprising. We realized as we went working with the clients, plus all the case studies and the white papers that we had read, we knew it gave results. Now, to answer directly the question, yes, trust can be measured. Yes, trust can be measured at an individual leader level. Trust can be measured at the team and the organizational level. And you will know exactly where your trust levels are with each of those units. Now, given that fact, it also adds on. And when I talk about trust can be measured, I'm obviously talking about a 30 years researched assessment done by Rena Consulting. And they have tested globally across multiple organizations. And it has pretty much been statistically validated as well. So it's a psychometric assessment, and it measures and gives you not just the measurement, but it indicates how you can increase your collaborativeness, how you can increase your efficiency, effectiveness, and overall results. Now, when you have that kind of indicators where the assessments are 40 plus pages, you're looking at an in-depth report which gives you significantly deep insights, and insights which takes you towards a step towards transformation. And I say transformation because trust being foundational always results in significantly huge changes, including cultural changes and employee engagement. So, in terms of whether it can be measured, yes, and RENA assessments, a suite of assessments, are literally the leading authority in that space. And 30 years, if a couple is dedicating entire life on just one topic of trust building, imagine what we're going to get across.
Thank you, Subramanian. So, having heard you two speak about trust and its impact on organizations, Subramanian, do you see trust playing a role in the current COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, we have been talking about COVID. We have been speaking about that. We all know it has been unprecedented. And when we say unprecedented, we are basically implying there is no past information or a future data or a past data that we could rely on and define our next steps and strategies. So when it is unprecedented, we all understand that it is going to be very challenging because nobody knows what that result is going to be based on the decisions that the leaders take. Now, whether you look at it from a business perspective, there has been huge impacts to the business, and most of them negative, and predominantly to certain industries, even more worse. And leaders in that industry have been forced to take tough decisions. And when you take tough decisions, it's not easy to implement those decisions. And when it comes to involving asking your team members who are working from home, which is again a new scenario, asking them to deliver more, asking them to be creative in what they are doing, it's not going to be easy without trust. Because if you have trust, you have the safety net, you have the belief, you have the commitment from the team members, and the team members believe that they are safe to experiment. And if that is not there, then it's going to be even more tough. So COVID pandemic, because of the uncertainty, because of its nature of being unprecedented, it has been a significant challenge. People leaving organizations, how leaders have been able to effectively manage that relationship, how leaders have been able to manage the cost pressure and asking team members to take a cut in salary and still deliver more. So all these are unprecedented. And in such circumstances, when you have trust going in the organization, imagine how good that is going to be in terms of results, in terms of standing up to those challenges. So trust is even more in demand in scenarios like this and any other challenging situations.
Thank you, Subramanian. So clearly, the COVID-19 situation has shown scenarios and situations in which trust has been tested. And the thought that comes to mind is about trust and betrayal. Whether we like it or not, they go hand in hand. Seeing this, Jessica, how do you handle betrayal?
That's a good question. How do I handle betrayal? I think, fortunately for me, I have not experienced betrayal, at least not intentional betrayal. I've been lucky, but I do see unintentional betrayal that comes along. Like, in fact, I believe that we humans, like, every human interaction is like a human laboratory where we build trust and we break trust, both intentionally and most of the time unintentionally. So when I experience unintentional betrayal, from my experience, what I do is I look back I take the larger picture of what the situation is. And I step back, and we also have something called the 7 steps of healing, which the Rainas have brought out so beautifully. It's a beautiful healing process that takes you through the steps of healing and recovery, and where you're able to again rebuild trust when broken. So that is for those who experienced trust betrayal, because just like trust is so empowering, betrayal can be so devastating. And the good news is that along with building trust, and even when trust is broken, there is still hope. There is a way to renew trust. And in fact, that is something I really love about this work, the work of rebuilding trust. So we could connect more offline to hear more about that.
Sure. Thank you, Jessica. And surely everyone who's listening to this, there is always an opportunity to rebuild trust. And I'd like to thank Jessica and Subramanian for that insightful discussion on trust and trust building. Now, for all our viewers who have tuned in today into the live, a lot of them have raised some questions. And so I'd like us to kind of address them. And so if you haven't expressed your question as yet, go ahead and type the responses in the comment section. Okay, so we have a question from Lekha. She says, talking of measurements, would the level of trust in a leader be steady across time? Wouldn't it change given that the teams get reconstituted, events happen, behavior changes based on transient moods or experiences? There are communication gaps and lags, and hence perceptions about leaders would change. Subramanian or Jessica, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, can I take that?
Sure.
Okay, so that's a great question, Lekha. And And obviously, it's a dynamic situation. The leaders themselves can change and over time. And along with that, like you rightly said, the teams also gets reconstituted. What is also happening when we talk about building trust is we are instilling behaviors in these leaders and the team members and in the entire organization, a behavior that translates to culture. So even if these team members get reconstituted, and even if the leader gets to face a new set of team members, or vice versa, what you're doing eventually is you are instilling a behavior that will help to build trust. You are instilling a clear set of behaviors that have been researched to indicate how these behaviors, when practiced, increase trust. And when these behaviors are not in existence, it decreases or there is lack of trust. So, Lekha, thanks for that question. And exactly that is an additional challenge, and which basically means you need a robust, sustainable change that that lives through the test of time. And if you work at the level of behavior, if you work at the level of values, it's going to build an organization and a culture that believes and practices trust. Thank you so much. I love that question.
Thank you, Lekha. And we have more questions coming in. So the next question that we have is from Prem Sai. He says, how can leaders build trust?
Shall I take that question?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, please.
Okay. So we have 16 behaviors as per the RENA trust model, which have been clearly researched by RENAs and identified as when these 16 behaviors are practiced, behaviors like managing expectation, giving and receiving feedback, keeping agreements, and a number of them. When these behaviors are practiced intentionally, what follows is trust gets built and gets inspired, in fact. So you build trust and you inspire others to practice the same behaviors and build trust too.
Thanks, Jessica. And Prem, I hope that addresses your question. So we have some more time to take one more question. And okay, so the next question that we have is, how do we handle the situation when trust is broken?
And then that is a beautiful question, and it is so real in not just the current situation. We come across that all the time. The research done by RENA, which is what we follow, is clearly establishes one surprising fact. Trust, most of the time, 90% of the time, gets broken unintentionally, which means I do not intend to break the trust, but I am not aware when that trust gets broken. And with that also is the fact that trust means many different things to different people. What trust means to you and what it means to me, and what is betrayal to you and what is betrayal to me, are very different. And more so, like Dan had made a comment earlier on the page, was trust is emotionally very provocative. And so the challenge is obviously how to handle. Now, we do have a technique or a tool to address trust cases where the trust is broken. And if the trust is broken, the research very clearly has established, and we have also seen, that you can rebuild trust. Now, in many cultures, there is this belief that trust is like a glass. When the glass gets broken, you can never join it. If you join it, the cracks will always be seen. Now, that's the story we have heard right from our childhood. Now, research says otherwise. Research says you can actually rebuild trust. And in the case of betrayal, you can actually heal people who are suffering from betrayal. So, and then that's a great question. How to handle the situation? There is a 7 steps of healing that we talk about and we bring in. There is also the fact that you can rebuild trust if it is not significant or if it is not that bad. So I hope that helps you with that question.
Great. So thank you, Subramanian and Jessica, for sharing your insights on trust and trust building. And for all of you out there who have attended and participated, thank you.
I
Don't forget
think
to.
There's a question from Meera. I think one last.
just
Sure,
let's just take that last question.
sure.
Meera, question says, trust once broken, how can one trust the same person again? Very beautiful, very real, extremely real in terms of practicality, and that's where the healing comes in play. That's where the behaviors become important, and you may have unintentionally betrayed somebody, or someone may have unintentionally betrayed you. Now, once you understand that, and once you understand why that happens, and once you start understanding the nuances of how trust gets broken unintentionally, you start respecting and accepting some of those behaviors. And you understand that you can actually rebuild trust. I know it's difficult. I know we have extreme scenarios where betrayals may be very difficult to even think about. So there is an emotional provocativeness. Emotions are powerful, but it can be healed if they are bad. And once you are healed, you can actually start working towards rebuilding trust. It's not easy, but it's definitely is possible.
Yes, and the 7 steps of healing are very powerful in helping you let go. And so, even betrayal can be minor or major. So, depending on the intensity, whether it's a major betrayal or a minor betrayal, we could handle it accordingly. And once we go through the 7 steps of healing, then it is good to have a conversation where each party comes together and they speak with good purpose. And that is where I started right at the beginning. Trust begins with you, right? So even
Mhm.
if trust is broken, the responsibility to rebuild trust also, it is like you can be proactive and it begins with you. And you never know the other person, it could be life changing for the other person.
I think,
Because for all you
Aishwarya, do
know,
we have
trust may have been unintentionally broken.
Aishwarya, can we take 2 more questions? I see 2 more questions on the
Sure.
on
Yeah,
the pages.
let's go ahead and take those.
So Rebecca from Germany has this question saying, "My boss doesn't trust me despite my efforts. How can I mend this?" Jesse, you want to take that question?
Yeah, so Rebecca, in such a scenario, what you could do is um, by following the behaviors of trust. So, like if you get deeper into the 16 behaviors of trust, there is a particular aspect where you can go with good purpose and have a communication with your boss in all openness. And when you speak with good purpose and that spirit comes along with you get an opportunity to open a window of openness, open communication between you and your boss. And then when you're ready to take feedback with an open mind, and probably you may understand aspects that you were not aware of when your boss communicates. And that kind of a dialogue, which is healthy, which is open, transparent, and coming from from a place of speaking with good purpose, could definitely help you rebuild or build more trusting relationships with the boss. It may not be easy the first time, but if you keep going at it, it would definitely help build trust.
Yeah, that was great, Jesse. Rebecca, there is also aspect of managing expectations and understanding expectations, and I think you should
Yeah.
try and ask questions to see how that can be established and cleared, so you both have an understanding that will take you towards trust. Sunil Kumar has a question saying, "How can people build trust smartly around you?" Sunil, like we earlier said, trust can be built by practicing behaviors that enable and help build trust. And once you start practicing those behaviors, and once you make the people aware of what builds and what breaks trust, you should see things changing around you. I have one more question. Someone I know has issues. This is Anupriya Chaudhary, and she says, someone I know has issues trusting people even in his personal life. The same trait of mistrust has seeped into his professional life. What would be a remedy for him? I think, I suspect the incident must have been bad, deep, and hurtful, and which means 7 steps of healing will be required. Also, trying to understand the aspects of trust and the behaviors of trust can help him wean out of those bad memories. And Jessica here especially is also a psychotherapist, but more than that, she is also an EIT consultant, which actually helps people work on their internal changes far more faster than a traditional coaching approach would work. So all of those combinations would help Anupriya. So thank you for that question. Hope that helps, and we can always take that discussion offline as well.
Yes, Anupriya, I think we could have a conversation offline and see how to help you if you want to help this person. Um, there are a number of questions. There was a question I saw from Sureka. She asks, when betrayal is unintentional, when the other person doesn't even know, what if the other person doesn't know that you see his act as betrayal? People don't always express feelings openly. And this is where, Sureka, when your intention is good and you want to break that ice or you want to rebuild the trusting relationship where you are that oak tree, like reaching out and helping the other person who doesn't even know that he's actually doing something that is betraying trust. It is the situation where you can actually reach out and speak with good purpose, like get that other person to understand that you come with good purpose and you want to communicate something so that it would help rebuild or fortify a relationship which is worth keeping, which is not worth being a relationship which is suffered due to an unintentional betrayal. We can always rise above it and bring things to the fore and clean it up through an open, honest communication of trust. And actually, you'll
If
be doing, I think that would also take your trust tank. It would help you build and expand your own trust tank because you're doing this with faith, wanting to help somebody who is not even aware that he's unintentionally betraying trust.
and if I could add to that, Jesse. So if the person, in this case you, who is experiencing betrayal, you will obviously need to go through the 7 steps of healing for you to be neutralize that emotions that you're experiencing. And once you have been able to neutralize those experiences where the memory is there but the impact is not as bad, and you're kind of feeling equally empowered and have let that memory go, then you may get into discussing that aspect with that person. And then there are, we suggest, we always talk about understanding what behaviors have led to that, and obviously that's a blind spot for that person. So I hope that answers your question. I have one question here from Natarajan. Can the ability to build trust be learned or developed, or is it an inherent skill? Definitely, Natarajan, the trust research by Reina Trust Building clearly establishes that trust can be learned and developed. So very clearly that is there. Trust has been inherent in most of us. I think our experiences starts diluting it, or it may be different depending on case to case. But trust can be definitely be learned.
All right. Thank you, Subramanian, and thank you, Jessica, for the insights that you shared with us. And to everyone out here who's posed a question and commented, really appreciate and thank you very much. So tag us on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook and let us know what are your thoughts from today's session and what really resonated with you. We would love to hear what you would like us to cover in the next coming episodes, as well as if you see value in what you saw today, please share the series with them. Who knows? Maybe you could inspire them to building trust. Till then, thank you for tuning in to Trust Talks, brought to you by Renergetics Consulting, where we transform people, transform business. Good night, folks. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Aishwarya.
Thank you.
Thank you.